Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the RSN All Area Selection Team Show. Jack Thiel, Mike Dewan, Zach Snelly, if you're just joining us. We went over our honorable mention list and our second team list, and now it's time for the first team all-selection list here at Region Sports Network. These are the guys who really stood out, and we've had the pleasure of talking about these guys for about 3-4 months, and we get to talk about them for one more day, and it starts with the quarterback, the kid who really had himself a special year and led a program to a special time, Noah Ehrlich out of the Crown Point Bulldogs. There were 2,400 passing yards, 64% of completions. He also had 292 rushing yards as well, 33 total touchdowns on the year. He also served as the punter. He was 7 punts for 266 punting yards. School records in single-season passing yards, passing touchdowns, and completions. He was a 2023 6A Junior All-State selection. He also was a 2023 DAC Offensive MVP. He's considered a 3-star recruit. Currently getting offers from Miami, Ohio, Toledo, and Central Michigan. And I also saw an article where he was on the Mr. Indiana football watch list for next year, and there's a lot of great talent. You got Mark Zachary, number 1 player in all of Indiana. You have Elijah Price as well, the running back for Ben Davis.
Larry Ellison, too.
And Larry Ellison.
You made a short list as well.
And now Noah Ehrlich as well, the quarterback. And before you give your little spiel, one thing I will say is this kid really blossomed this year. The Hobart transfer coming into Crown Point. It's the same, but it's the different. Both schools are heavily involved with their football programs. But for Crown Point, it meant a little more. You had a new head coach, a lot of moving parts for this Crown Point team.
True.
And Noah Ehrlich, he's only a junior. And I remember watching him against Lake Central. This was when Crown Point was winning a lot of their games by a lot of points. Their starters weren't really playing, the full time. And I'm watching this game, and I'm like, where's this Noah Ehrlich everybody's been talking about? And the second half, he lit up that scoreboard, doing with his arms, doing with his legs. Then I had the pleasure of calling the Crown Point and LaPorte football game. And I tell you one thing, I've never seen a kid throw on the run in high school football in Indiana like this kid. The way he's able to throw on the run, throw maybe on his back foot if needed, but also stay in the pocket and make those throws was as impressive as it gets. You don't see many quarterbacks able to successfully throw those types of accurate throws on the run. And it seemed like he preferred to do that because how good he was at it. And, when it comes to quarterback play, that's why a lot of teams in the region have trouble making it all the way up to that state championship game, because you play those teams in Indianapolis and they have standout quarterbacks.
Right.
And that's how this makes Noah Ehrlich such a great quarterback, the fact that he was able to lead Crown Point, the first region team to ever make it to a 6A state championship game. That's what makes it even more special, the way Noah Ehrlich played. And I also think him being first team, other than stats, is because he was a leader on that football field. He wasn't an I guy. He was a we guy. We interviewed him once, and the way he taught, he never said me. He said he said we, a program. They all play together, and Noah Ehrlich was the nucleus of that offense, not just as the quarterback, but also the leader, the general, making sure everybody's doing their assignments, making sure everybody's held accountable for. And, we talk about all these stats when it comes to being a great teammate, a leader, and a general. Noah Ehrlich, checks off all those boxes.
Yeah, and that's a lot to ask when in your first season with the program. Again, we mentioned he's a transfer from Hobart, and it's to break 3 school records and lead your team to a state championship, their first ever state championship appearance. It earns you a spot on this list. Of course, again, big shout out to Mark Rowland. He definitely had the stats, but with what Ehrlich did for this program and again this community, we can't shy away from it. And again, it's much respect to both the guys, but again, you mentioned you talked with Ehrlich, and it's again he's well spoken. He knows what's at stake, and he knows again it's a team effort. It's it's what you have to do as a quarterback. And again, I'm excited to see where this goes to the future. Again, he's one of those guys next year for Crown Point. He's going to be back in that red jersey, and he's going to, again, make some plays, maybe even take another step up, which is crazy to think about, but he has that talent. Again, looking at his film a little bit, you mentioned how he throws off platform a lot, and he kind of almost prefers that. He makes those next-level throws. You see some of those top quarterbacks make in the league. I mean, we could talk about, again, Mahomes. That's kind of the way quarterbacks are trying to look for. Again, rolling out, throwing some crazy plays. Josh Allen, again, exceptional arm talent that could make any throw you ask him to. And Ehrlich, again, he kind of has that talent here. I don't want to compare him to the best of the best, but he's shown a lot of flashes this year. And again, we're only more excited to see what could happen up in 2024.
Next is Caden Verrett, running back for Hanover Central, 200 carries, over 17 total rushing yards, but all-purpose, he had over 2,000 all-purpose yards, 33 total touchdowns, 2023 3A junior all-state selection. And
he also punted.
And punted as well. He had 19 punts for 626 yards. But when you talk about running backs, loaded list, Caden Verrett just stood out. The way he was able to help this Hanover Central offense have another undefeated regular season. And we had, we've called that game Hanover Central and West Lafayette. He had like a 92-yard rushing touchdown. The kid's built like a bull, but he's fast like Flash.
Yeah.
You look at him and you don't think he's that fast. You think he's a bruiser. You think that, he's only going to get 4 or 5 yards. No, if he has an open hole, he's going to accelerate and take his speed into the house. And that's what he did a lot this year. And an impressive year for only 200 carries and have that many rushing yards or just all-purpose yards as a whole. Caden Verrett was as impressive as it gets in the backfield.
Yeah, he's a beast. Again, only a junior. I think these numbers are going to exceed next year. But one thing that caught my eye, I was kind of surfing through our Twitter, and they did like a max day at Hanover's at a weightlifting program, whatever. I think they were doing off-season lifts, and they did maxes, and they had a software where they kind of measured everything and ranked everything out. And I think he led the players. I think even seniors from this year, he led players in, I believe, vertical jump, broad jump.
Jeez.
I think 40-yard dash, and he might have been up there on the squat too. He posted all those on his Twitter, and that's like, man. You're a running back, man, and you're leading in categories that maybe some DBs or some some strong, some typically stronger positions should be leading in. But no, this guy's he's a total package, man. He could punt it too. Of course, he doesn't just do everything, in the rushing game. But again, another play from that West Lafayette game, he showed off his hands. It was kind of like a Hail Mary a little bit right before half that again, caught a pass probably 20 yards out, still 20 yards away from the end zone, made a cut, reversed all the way back, field goal for the pylon. Again, this guy's going to be special, even more special next year, I think.
Now let's go to the receivers. TJ Caldwell, the transfer. He had a lot of hype coming into Hobart. I was very excited to watch him play. 48 receptions, 846 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns as well. He was a 2023 4A senior all-state commit. He's actually committed as well to Valparaiso, so staying kind of locally in the area. But TJ Caldwell, the transfer out of Calumet, he's got the size, he's got the speed, and him and Johnny Sorensen definitely had a special connection.
Yeah, again, it seemed like they were playing together for a minute. He may not have had the stats he did at Calumet. He was kind of that really go-to guy at Calumet, but nonetheless, doing this at the NCC level, he was really just near the top of our leaderboards for just about most of the year until we get into our next guy. But yeah, he was a game breaker for Hobart, and again, we were kind of used to seeing Hobart again pound the rock, but it was interesting to see kind of how they could implement him in and spread the ball out, and they did just that this year. So shout out to Caldwell, and again, that was just a recently committed to Valparaiso, so I'm excited for that to see what he does for the Crusaders now, or the Beacons, right? Are they the Beacons?
Yeah, the Deep Beacons.
Beacons, sorry. Excuse me. But yes, the Valparaiso Beacons. So shout out to him. And, again, staying local, that's super cool to see.
Next is Bryce Compton out of Wheeler, 40 catches, 867 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. He also had 30 tackles and 2 interceptions. Second in the area in receiving yards while only playing 9 games. Got a tall frame with track speed. Talked about Caleb Klimzak, and honorable mention on our quarterbacks list. This was his number 1 guy, Bryce Compton. Compton's in the house, and
there
for him, he had just an exceptional year. The weird thing is the only time we covered a Wheeler game, it was pouring rain, and he had no catches on the year. And other than that, he's got games where he's got 10 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. But we keep talking about how Wheeler had this, this magical run at the end to win that GSSC South title. Bryce Compton being the receiver he was, nobody could even come close to matching up with him.
Compton's in the house.
There you go.
He's tough.
Get the
man.
bass in there.
He's tough. Yeah, no, I got that. I know Stacey King always brings it up in
Gotta
Bulls
get
games when he's
that
talking
low.
about DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
But no, that was a fun film to watch. I watched his first couple plays. He lost about 2 dudes, and I'm like, yeah, we'll clip this and we'll show that on the show because he's a beast, man. Again, he's got a tall frame. He makes the quarterback's job super easy because he also runs track and he runs it pretty well. Another junior, man. Again, I'm excited for these Wheeler Bearcats. Again, evolve, and we'll see kind of how that Klimzak and Compton connection looks in 2024.
Final receiver on the first team selection list is going to be Jimmy Finley out of the Andrean 59ers, 32 receptions, over 500 receiving yards. Also has 56 total tackles with 2 touchdowns. He switched to the receiver this year. He's actually a DB, and he led the team in receiving yards and catches. He's a 2-time All-State selection, a 3-star recruit currently with offers from Michigan State, Toledo, Central Michigan, and Miami, Ohio. You like this guy a lot in the beginning of the year. You know, you were also very impressed with the way he was able to switch positions from DB to receiver, something that's not easy to do, although people think it is, but it's not. And I think he's even joked around about that, how he's made that switch. And you were just so impressed with the way he played at receiver for a team that was expected not to be as good as they were.
Yeah, we covered that Hobart game, especially when they played each other, and he made some fantastic plays. Again, it looked like he was playing receiver for a while. Sometimes he is. I mean, at the DB position, I know last year I think he led the state in interceptions. He was again fantastic as a sophomore, and now again in after his junior season, he's now already have 2 All-State team selection nods. You might be going for a 3rd next year. Again, we talked about the play of Jaden Holmes, and again that he's coming back next year in the secondary, and we'll see again Jimmy Finley stick him somewhere, and he's going to make some play for the Niners. And again, I'm excited to see how those guys all evolve next year for that Andrean team.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun to watch. And what's fun is going to be our offensive line list. Man, these guys were bruisers this year, and it's really the best of the best that the region has to offer in O-linemen. And I have a feeling you'll see a lot of these guys playing on Saturday just because of how good they are. And it starts with a guy who will be playing on Saturday. It's Matt Hoffer out of Valparaiso, Toledo commit, 3-star recruit, 2 times All-State selection, and, of course, state title with the Valpo Vikings.
Right.
That's a guy we talked about all year long, and the ability to block for a guy like Davis and Berta, and not just this year, and Clark, not just this year, but last year as well. He was huge for this team, and coming into this year, there was a lot of hype surrounding Matt Hoffer.
Yeah, it's again Toledo commit. This was definitely the dude to look out for on the offensive line, and this guy was almost just about a shoe-in as it gets.
Yeah,
he's again top 50 state team in the whole of Indiana. That's one of only 3 people on this list who are going to talk about it. It's the highest honors you could just about get in the state, and it's well deserved. Again, fantastic frame. Obviously, Toledo sees that, and they're getting a good one come next fall.
Crown Point Bulldogs, they have 2 guys on this offensive line list. The first one is Jeffrey Machete, All-State selection back in 2022. This past year, he was the Phil Enescu Mental Attitude Award winner for the Class 6A. And we keep talking about O-linemen who had the best rushing numbers, and obviously Crown Point was one of the best teams.
He's well respected, obviously. Again, he plays at the All-State level. I don't think he made it this year, but he was still all-conference selection. And what sticks out to me the most is, again, the Mental Attitude Award. I think that's given to somebody playing in each respective class's state championship game, and obviously it speaks volumes of how well respected he is in the community. I believe kind of the requirements for this award is, again, an impact in the community, in the classroom, of course, on the field. And again, it's kind of, I think, given to you. Again, they ask the coaches and all, it's all kind of, it doesn't get much bigger than this for Machete. And again, it speaks volumes. And again, he's still a very good player for this team. And again, he deserves all the praise he's getting currently. So
our third O-lineman and our second Bulldog is going to be Paul Clark. Led the explosive offense with Machete, who we just talked about, but standing in at 6'4", 265 pounds. Buffalo commit, all-conference and all-state selection this year. Also one of the best wrestlers, not just in the state, but in the country, you could say, at his weight class. You would just watch him at the Carnahan Invitational. I feel like they're going to have to build a statue for the Clark brothers. But for Paul, we'll talk about right now, Paul Clark, an exceptional player, another guy who came into this year with a lot of hype. A lot of people in that Crown Point community knew the type of player he is. And, just as impressive as it gets on the line.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what those speaking on both
What do
the
they
Clarks,
eat? What do they drink?
Someone's in the water in that Clark household, man. I know they got some work coming up, but, those...
They must eat their spinach.
Something. Wheaties, man. Watch a bit of Popeye, but I don't know what those two are better at in terms of sports, but nonetheless, Paul, again, imposing force. Again, you mentioned the next level frame, and again, he anchored things down for that O-line, of course, an all-state selection. Again, he was, I think, typically voted as a team captain week by week. Again, a lot of respect on that team. And, again, Buffalo's getting a good one with that Clark package deal. I'm excited to see, again, what they do in the future. But right now, he's obviously doing some things in wrestling. I know I watched both the Clark brothers, again, wrestle in the championship rounds of the Carnahan Invitational and pin both their guys. It's those two are something else, to say the least.
Our fourth lineman is going to be Aiden Olage, one of the top centers in the area, first team all-conference in 2023, two-sport athlete. We kind of mentioned him a little bit on our honorable mention with his teammate, but another guy who really just stepped up when he needed to. And being a center is very hard. Snapping that football is not easy at all. He did it pretty good.
No, and then worrying about the guy in front of you, of course. Yeah. But a lot of coaches got back to us. Again, Olage was called, by one of the best centers they played all year. I think the best center he played all year. And then I actually kind of picked the brain of a Hobart coach and RSN's own Isaiah Gransberry, kind of what his thoughts were on Aiden Olage, and it was nothing but praise for this kid. It's he definitely had a fantastic year, and again, he anchored one of the most potent offenses in the area. So shout out to Olage for sure. Our
fifth and final O lineman will be Ben Novak, next level frame as he stands at 6'6". He's the lone sophomore on the first team, is also first team all conference and all state this year, and he actually has an offer from Western Michigan as a sophomore. This kid's got a lot of bright and potential in front of him.
Yeah, for sure. It's again, when we were talking to coaches, Chris Skinner, Andrean's head coach, he said if there was kind of a bright spot in this kind of a big turnover, a lot of turnover that this offense went through this year, Ben Novak was a bright spot. He offered something, again, he offered a lot of protection at that, but he can move very well at the 6'6" frame. Don't let that fool you. And again, coaches are already starting to see that at the D1 levels, and I'm expecting big things for this kid.
Yeah. And our utility player, who is on our first team list, is going to be Aiden Silver, the quarterback out of River Forest. Although he was the quarterback, this man could do it with his legs as well. He had over 1,000 passing and rushing yards, 27 total touchdowns. Also played defense. He had 94 total tackles and 2 interceptions. He led the team in passing yards, rushing yards, and total touchdowns. He was actually second in total tackles and tied for the lead in interceptions. And he was also the main kickoff and punt return guy and the punter as well.
I wonder if he drove him to the game as well. He did just about everything, dude.
He led River Forest to their 5th straight winning season, but usually the quarterback only plays one position. Usually no one touches him. Usually he wears a red jersey in practice. I have a feeling Aiden Silver did not wear that red jersey. That kid probably was everywhere in practice. Coach is probably calling Aiden, hey, we need you at quarterback for these drills. Aiden, we need you at secondary for these drills. So that's the question. If you're a quarterback,
that's a great point.
Who plays defense, who plays special? So when you're playing, your scrimmages in practice, who takes his spot? Because he's supposed to play. He's a starter. Who's taking his spot? Nevertheless, it's impressive as it gets to see a quarterback play as many positions as he did at the rate and at the effectiveness he did.
Yeah, he's positionless. Again, he's only a junior. I'm expecting a lot of things from him coming 2024. Again, hopefully he doesn't take up any more roles than he probably has now. He seems like he has a lot on his plate. I don't know. It doesn't look like he comes off the field that much. I think he at least comes off for kickoffs. I didn't have any kickoff stats on him. Yeah. He's kicking the ball to them. He still returns kicks. But it's this guy's a gamer, man. He loves the game. Obviously, he sees plenty of it, and it's again, even at the next level, if he chooses to go that route, he could offer you just about anything you may ask him to.
Let's move to defense now. We'll go with the linemen. We got 4 of them. The first one is Adam Campfor, 64 total tackles, 6 of those for a loss, including 4 sacks. A 2-year starter. He's only a junior. Comes in at 6'1" and 300 pounds. Pure strength. He was a 2023 5A junior all-state selection. And another guy, a lot of potential and a bright future ahead of him and a great junior year for Adam Campfor.
It's a long line of Maryville Pirates. Yeah. He's coming up. From what I saw, it was tough. We're going to get into a Maryville D lineman up next. That, of course, we're going to all know his name. But Campfor, he really had a solid season this year, and he was arguably the most productive D lineman. Of course, we talked about James Veal actually winning that team lineman MVP. But Camphor, again, he's watching his film was fun. He sheds blocks like no other. Again, he's a big dude, just again pure strength, just a wrecking ball. And again, he's a nightmare for your offensive coordinators, and he's going to do it again next year. I just know it. So we're excited to see again how he takes this next step. Again, we got a lot of juniors on this list. I kind of keep saying we're excited to see how they do next year, but it's true. Again, this stuff matters for them, and they want to find their name on this list next year, I bet.
Another Pirate you kind of alluded to, Terrell Elmore makes the list. 24 total tackles, 9 for loss, 2.5 sacks, including 3 blocked field goals. Now, he didn't play the whole season as well, so that's why those numbers are a little bit condensed. But nevertheless, he's a 2-time All-State selection. In fact, he was a top 50 team in 2023, committed to Eastern Michigan, but another guy who we talked about every week because he was a game changer on defense.
Completely. And going off of that, again, asking coaches, I'm going to kind of keep things anonymous, but one coach said, he was the one player this year that we completely changed our scheme against. This was, again, and that is a testament to the stats. Again, 24 total tackles, you kind of see that, and it's like, why this guy's first team?
Yeah.
But why would you go at him? Why would you run at him? You want to run completely away from him because he's gonna wreck things up, and it's gonna be a tackle for loss. Which again, he had 9 of them, and it's still 2.5 sacks. Again, the numbers may not be there for your prototypical first team guy, but it's the impact he has. It's not recorded on the stat sheets, but also 3 blocked field goals. That's fantastic. But one thing I didn't know is I didn't know he wrestled. I found that out. We did a Maryville Chesterton or last week, I should say, and again, you see a lot of two-sport guys on here that, again, it's a lot of wrestlers too as well. Of course, the Clark brothers and our next T-lineman we're going to talk about, they kind of go hand in hand with each other, but it's the reason why they're doing it. They're so athletic, and they could, again, make their names known in plenty different sports. So, again, shout out to all these guys.
Yeah, our next D-lineman comes from Hanover Central, Colin Foy, 70 total tackles, 5.5 for a loss, including 3 sacks. He also started offensive tackle here and there, but he's a 2-time All-State selection. Currently has offers from Marion, Carthage, and Western Illinois, and called one Hanover Central game, and that's all I needed to see. This kid is a beast, and every time they tried to run it up the middle on him, I kid you not, he broke right through the O-line. Like, there was no way of stopping him, and he's a guy, you mentioned another wrestler.
Right.
He's a
very good,
big, strong dude, and when he gets physical in football on that line, good luck blocking him.
I'm pretty sure that Lafayette game, I think he had a season high like 18 tackles.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
And again, it's at the D-line position. You don't linebackers. That's a little bit more understandable.
Yeah.
Again, you're the kind of the goal of the D-line is to kind of free up spots for the linebacker to kind of make plays either behind or a little bit in front of the line of scrimmage. But Foy, he kind of serves both roles. He doesn't let you get to that second level, and again, it shows whatever he does at the next level, whatever route he goes on, he's going to make an impact, whether that's wrestling or football or neither. He's a dude, man. He's a game wrecker, and it was fun to watch him just for that lone game.
Final D lineman here is going to be Seamus Molaski out of Crown Point. 52 total tackles, 13 of those for loss, including 7 sacks. He also had 9 receptions for 151 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. All-State selection in 2023. He's a 3-sport athlete: football, basketball, and track and field, where he's committed to Purdue on a scholarship. He was a state champion disc thrower. Weird how we're giving this guy all this praise, not for football.
It's
never
like football's a side hustle, man.
Yeah, it is the way he's playing. I mean, he's also a pivotal part on that men's team for Crown Point for basketball.
Having a solid year.
But this guy was all over the football field. I mean, we talk about defense, the way he was able to break through the line. 13 tackles for loss and 7 sacks is ridiculous.
Yep.
But yeah, he can go catch 9 passes for 151 yards and 5 touchdowns. So Seamus Molaski, a guy who can do it, not just in football, not just in basketball, but track and field as well. Had himself a terrific year this year.
Yeah, it's really tough to pick out the best athlete on this Crown Point team. We have a case for about 5 guys, and Molaski's about the best as they come. Again, another state champion in a different sport, but he's he was a beast, man. Again, next level frame, kind of taller dude, bigger guy, but again, he can move. Of course, he can play offense, play that H-back / tight end role, and he benefited well off of that fantastic offensive scheme they got for him. But he made most of his money on the defensive side, and it's it kind of stinks. You don't get to see him play at the next level, but it just shows how much of an athlete he is just in the track and field game. And again, I got to give a shout out to him. Boiler up, man. That's I know he's in basketball now, but I know track's coming up pretty soon, and we'll see if he can repeat. Boiler up, baby. Come on.
Well, we'll go to the linebackers now, and this is probably the most impressive player we had the opportunity to watch all year long. It's Will Clark. The Crown Point Bulldogs, 133 total tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, the leader of that Crown Point defense, committed to Buffalo. He's also a state champion wrestler at 215 pounds. He was a 2023 DAC Defensive MVP. He was top 3 in Indiana Mr. Football. So it's as impressive as it gets. Look, Will Clark, and it's kind of like a guy who, we can go on and on about stats and what he – how many catches or how many tackles he had, but this was a guy who was the nucleus of the defense. We talked about Ehrlich as a nucleus of the offense. Will Clark was the nucleus of this defense and true leader. And when you needed a big play made, it was always Will Clark there in the right spot. It's like he knew what was happening and he knew what was coming before it even happened. That just tells you the football IQ he possesses, how quick he is, how fast, how smart. And Will Clark is just as impressive as the linebacker that we've seen here in Indiana. I don't know if you have any names that come to mind, but for me personally, Will Clark just blew, I think, everybody out of the water with the way he played. Now, he had a lot of expectations coming into this year, but he exceeded those expectations the way he played, and he was a big part why that defense won that Penn game. Very close one. They needed defense. And that Westfield game in overtime. Those were defensive stops that needed to be made, and Will Clark was there to help make those stops.
Yeah, it's my first time really covering sports, but it's tough I think it's gonna be really tough to find somebody as productive as Will Clark is for such a fantastic unit like Crown Point's defense. It's again, we covered a lot of Crown Point games this year, and I had a luckily a big chance to kind of watch him do his thing, and he's got all the intangibles you need. He's quick. Again, he offers decent size. At the 215 range, he's tall. He makes plays all over the field. Again, you need him to drop back into coverage, or you need him to rush the quarterback, which he did a lot. He could do it all, man. And Buffalo, again, getting a good one in that package deal. But you don't see many guys getting up there for Mr. Football. Again, Drake Bowen, of course, I never really got the chance to cover or play him. Of course, I knew about the impact he was doing, but this is my first season really going in depth, seeing how these guys, who the players look out for. And again, Will Clark, that was a hell of a season by him and just the whole Crown Point defense, man.
Absolutely.
They got something special going over there. Even though they got some guys coming back next year. Of course, you want to talk about this year, but don't sleep on them coming up in 2024.
Yeah. Next at linebacker is Nick Johnson, 151 total tackles, 19 for loss. That includes 3 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. He also had 9 receptions for 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. But overall, in the last 2 years combined, he's had 285 total tackles. He has led the area in total tackles for the past 2 years. He also led his team in receiving this year. He's a 2-time All-State selection committed to Valpo, so him and TJ Caldwell should get to know each other pretty well.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Nick Johnson, the guy who,
awesome.
No matter what the team's results were, it's a guy who we talked about every week just because how much of a game changer he was.
Yeah, he was that Highland defense, just about Highland offense. Again, when things struggled, he made some plays, again, kind of filled that tight end H-back role, but he was super fun to watch.
Yeah.
Again, first, I knew about him coming into this season a little bit. He had, again, very similar number of tackles, last year, and he's bettered that this year. It's Valpo's getting a great one, and Johnson, again, he's a gamer. He flies around the field, does everything you really need to at the linebacker position. Again, similar to Will Clark, he's a dog, to say the least. So shout out to Valpo, and again, shout out to Nick Johnson. They're getting a good one.
Our final linebacker, Darius Beeson. He was a beast as he had 146 total tackles, 17 for loss, 6 sacks, and 2 fumble recoveries. He also started out on the offensive line. He only had 18 tackles last year, so he had over 100 and about 30 more tackles this year. Two-sport athlete.
Crazy.
And we keep talking about how these guys have really upped their game and played at a different level. And Darius Beeson, I think, is a prime example of that.
Yeah, it's great. That's probably one of the biggest jumps I've seen all year. Looking at these guys, again, 18 tackles. They throw you in, and you're second on the tackle leaderboard to a sure tackler and Nick Johnson. I mean, if it wasn't Aiden Silver making a tackle, it was Darius Beeson. They made a lot of them. And again, River Forest, I believe he's a senior now, and they're going to miss him, but I think they'll be all right. But Beeson, again, those are fantastic stats, and there's a reason he's on this first team for sure.
Let's move to the DBs now. It's going to be Freddie Brown to lead off this one. 81 total tackles, 7 for loss, 10 sacks, including 2 blocked field goals. A 2023 5A junior all-state selection, currently a 3-star safety, getting offers from Memphis, Central Michigan, and Western Michigan. Another guy who we talked about, if you're going to win a game, Freddie Brown's going to have to be there to make some plays, and he did this year.
Yeah, he's a dog, man. It's funny. He's a 3-star safety, but he made All-State. They had him listed as a linebacker. So what Morton kind of does, again, watching a little bit of film, I can't speak on all this, but he walks up a lot. Again, he's technically a safety, but he kind of fills that rover role. He could walk up to the line of scrimmage, and obviously with 10 sacks this year, he can get to the quarterback. He's quick. Again, a 200-pound safety, that's a pretty big boy at the safety position. Yeah. Again, I'm sure that's just about all muscle and just athleticism, what he's got over there, but he could play about anywhere. And again, I kind of want to see what they do next year. They may have a hole a little bit at the running back position. I know he logged a couple carries for Morton this year.
Yeah,
I could totally see this dude again making a big impact on the offensive side and the defensive side. But again, coaches are seeing that. Again, he's getting some decent offers, and I'm only expecting more next year.
Next for the DBs comes out of Maryville, Trey Stevens, 73 total tackles, 12 for loss, including 2 forced fumbles. He also had 314 rushing yards and 6 total touchdowns. Now, I got to remember, he didn't play until week 3, so for him to have those stats is impressive. 2-time All-State selection, currently stands as a 2-star recruit. This was another guy, you want to talk about the nucleus of a defense, a guy who stepped up when he needed to make plays. That's Trey Stevens. I mean, that's his middle name, making plays.
Right.
You go back to that Valpo game in regionals, he's the one who made that stop in the end zone.
Play of the year, man.
Yeah, play of the year that helped the Pirates go to semi-state. And he's a guy who I believe he also had the flu game this year.
That's right.
So for Trey Stevens, he's a guy who can play both sides of the football. But when it comes to defense, he was making those big-time plays when you needed it.
Yeah, they're going to miss him a lot over there in Maryville, but he's a dog. Again, that was a fantastic play against Valparaiso. Again, not to negate anything else he did prior or after that, but I mean, again, playing 2 ways in the deck, that's a tall ask of anybody, and to do it at his level is even a taller ask. And again, 2-time All-State. You don't see many guys playing at that level twice and getting the recognition they do. And Trey Stevens, again, I think he's gotten a couple offers, but I think coaches are starting to realize the impact he has on both sides of the ball, and they can play him just about anywhere. So
yeah. Next is Tyler Torbinson, 101 total tackles, 15 for loss, 3 sacks, including 41 receptions for 514 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. He's a 4-year starter. He was a 3-year team captain, a 2023 3A senior all-state selection. Just another guy who's playing both sides of the football as good as you can. And for him, he was huge. I mean, 15 tackles for loss. That's really impressive from the DB position.
Yeah, again, he offers good size to where they can kind of walk him up to the line of scrimmage, and he can make plays up there. Again, he was all over the place. And again, another Boone Grove guy that really led them to a very big bounce back year. Again, I want to say they only had 2 wins, 2 wins a year ago, and then they definitely bettered that number by a lot. And it's, again, for a player like that, again, a 4-year starter, he probably meant so much to that program and that coaching staff. So it stings to say goodbye to Torbson, but again, he is such a big piece. Again, he's seen it all for that Boone Grove program a little bit. Again, 4 years ago, we're not talking about Boone Grove getting an all-turf field with the cool lights and that fantastic facility they got there. It's definitely bittersweet for Torbson to kind of walk out in that way. And again, we got to give him his flowers for that total impact he had in his career as a Wolf.
The final DB on our first team list is going to be Hayden DeMarco, 110 total tackles, 5 of them for loss, 3 sacks, including 379 kickoff return yards. Only 5'8", but man, that kid can tackle for his size. An all-conference nod as well, and also is a talented wrestler.
He's
but
very solid.
Hayden DeMarco, I mean, you look at it, 5'8", 140. You don't expect to make 110 tackles and 5 of them for loss. So he was as impressive for this football season, and he played a huge role in defense.
No, he's not afraid of contact. Again, it may be deceiving. 140 pounds, 5'8", at the DB position. You're licking your chops if you're running back to try and run through this guy. And DeMarco, He's such an effective tackler. Again, he's got that wrestling background. He's a very, very talented wrestler. I've been to a couple of Chesterton meets already, and he I don't know if he's lost yet. If so, it's been by very minimal. He's tough, man. He's a sure tackler. He's an ankle biter is what we kind of call him. He goes for your legs. He shoots, and he's taking you down every time. He loves contact, and he doesn't want his size to deceive him. And I think he's starting to let that down. So.
Now for our utility player on the first team, it's going to be Lane Zander. 32 receptions, 679 receiving yards. He also had 52 tackles, 2 interceptions. He also had over 700 kickoff plus punt return yards and 15 total touchdowns. He tripled his all-purpose yardage from last year. He was voted as the team MVP. He also broke 2 single-season records in receiving yards and kickoff returns for touchdowns. And that is the definition of a utility player.
Definitely a lot of praise from KV head coach Kirk Kennedy. This guy changes games, and he's got track speed. Again, his film was super fun to watch. I only watched a little bit of it, but it was just about all I needed to see. I know what this kid has to offer. He's quick. He could beat you, again, through the air, on the ground, through a kickoff, through a punt return. And, I mean, he did it all for the KV Cougars this past fall, and it's – again, I'm always looking forward. Again, we talk about these guys now, but come a couple years down the line, hey, I remember when I talked about this kid on the RSN All Area Show in 2023. It's no matter what route all these guys go, it's going to be fun to see what follows them up in the future.
Let's move to special teams for the first team. We'll start with the kicker. I'm going to give this one to kicker/punter Jack Doty. 5 of 6 on PATs, 4 of 7 on field goals. His longest was a 42-yarder. He also had 17 kickoffs, which 7 of them were touchbacks. He had the game winner in Week 1 against the 4A sectional champs in New Prairie. And why I say a punter, he had 10 punts down to inside the 20-yard line.
That was a nice stat they provided.
Now,
that's pretty impressive.
We covered the Valpo and LaPorte game and the Crown Point and LaPorte game, and there was a lot of punting for LaPorte. He was a beast, man. I mean, I tell you, this kid was awesome to watch. Like, he had a leg. And if it weren't for him, I feel like more points would have been scored on the opposition. But Jack Doty's boot was keeping, the defense starting, kind of in their own side of the field. And it was just impressive for me. And I was on you about this one.
You made sure to include this.
I wanted Jack Doty. I watched him. I had the POV. I saw him play, and I'm like, that kid can kick. And I think Jack Doty definitely is worthy of this list.
Enough.
For punter, Drayden Wilcox, he had 56 kickoffs. He averages 50 yards per kickoff. He had 32 punts where they averaged 34.5 yards per punt. He was 34 of 35 on PATs and 6 of 8 on field goals. He was also the DAC most valuable punter. That'll give you our punting nod. And, of course, our long snapper. You mentioned this one. We have a first-team long snapper, Luke Granzow, highly touted long snapper recruit, committed to Air Force.
That's awesome.
I'll ask you a question because you did make this list. What made you want to include a long snapper?
Well, I mean, again, obviously he's a touted recruit.
Where did that start from? Have you heard? You've heard about him, I assume. Before.
Yeah. Going into this year, and there's no stats to measure long snapper effectiveness or anything. But I wanted to give Grasnow his flowers. Obviously, going to a D1 program like Air Force, that's not easy to do. And I know he's. Again, I've kind of surfed a couple of these kids, social media pages and kind of see what coaches are saying or what are they rating these kids? And Granzow, he's a highly rated recruit. So obviously he's doing plenty of things right at the long snapper position. And Hobart as a whole, again, they have a very solid special teams unit. Of course, we talked about Xander Langford, who I also believe is starting to become kind of a touted recruit at the punter position, kicker position. It's you mentioned special teams third of the game, and again, it doesn't get better than these guys in the area. So, again, got to give shout-out to the long snappers. Couldn't find anybody else as touted as Granzow, but I had to give the flowers to the one most deserving, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's it for our first team selection list. I mean, including the honorable mention, the second team and the first team, at least 80 kids probably on this list around there.
It was a decent. I kind of lost count by the time midway through second team, but it's
incredible.
It shows how much talent's in the area. Again, it was super fun. Kind of all of us really, I'd say, kind of transcribing this list, and it's again, a lot of these guys. Again, I'm expecting if we do this again next year, which I assume we will, it's a lot of duplicates. A lot of copy these notes over for next year, I'd say. So
whether you made the honorable mention, the second team or first team, you have so much to be proud about. Congratulations to everybody that was on this list and that we had the opportunity to talk about here today on the RSN All Area Football Show. You guys deserve your flowers, deserve your credit. You guys are going out there every day playing football. Mike, you understand the grind it takes to play Friday Night Lights. So if there's anybody that knows and understands the respect and recognition these kids deserve, it's you. It's the one who made this list. So, you know,
I wouldn't say completely.
You did
completely.
You did an amazing job on
Thank
this.
you.
I think that credit all goes to you, all the stats you pulled out, all the film you've watched, and just being able to really make those tough decisions of who goes where. I mean, that's an impressive job on your part. And I feel like we're going to be maybe calling you a scout one day.
We'll see.
The way you were able to make this list.
Now that you say that, any of the backlash I get, put it right towards me. But
Oh, no.
I did kind of want to say again, if we kind of did miss you, if you're playing next year, or if you're a senior, don't let this kind of get to you. Again, if you're playing next year, if you're doing anything, let this be a chip on your shoulder for how you approach anything in the coming years, whether that's a football season, whether that's your freshman year of college, just going through classes. Again, don't let this not being named to this define you and anything. I mean, use it as ammo to pop on it next year. But it's been fun, man. Again, a lot of these kids, they deserve flowers, and it's why, again, I pitched the idea. I wanted to do something like this, and Chris, of course, our executive producers, go all for it, and now here we are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point you made up. And as we conclude this show, do you have any final words? I don't know if I think this is probably our last football show of the year.
Dude, I think so.
I know we haven't done one since State with Crown Point and Ben Davis right before Thanksgiving.
Post show.
It's almost a month.
Yeah.
We did a basketball show.
Yeah.
But this is probably going to be our last football show. It's kind of, right before this whole holiday season going on, kind of like putting a bow on what has been one incredible football season.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a season, to say the least. I don't want to say this is kind of a wrap up on football coverage.
No.
I know our off-season
we'll
audience.
Still post
our off-season audience, if there's such thing as an off-season. I know Chris and I have talked about plenty of things to do in the upcoming future, and we know the audience, of course, won't ever really go away when we're talking about football. But I mean, just for us, man. I mean, you personally, it's tough.
It's been a ride, man.
It's tough to find another a host. No, I'm serious. I mean, a host that could. It'll be as fun as this, man. It's
been fun, man.
It's been 3 months of every Thursday usually doing this. I know this is going to be on not our typical schedule, but it was a fun ride, man. It was a fun season, to say the least. And again, plenty of thanks, of course. I don't want to steal the words out your mouth, but Chris Ramirez, our executive producer, just letting us kind of be the two guys that kind of break the news to our audience. Every Thursday or whatever day it may be.
Yeah.
It was a fun ride, man.
No, absolutely. And a big thank you to you, the viewers, for all your continuous support throughout the year and throughout the season. Without you guys, this is not possible. We do this for you so you can watch whoever you want to watch, whether it's family, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody you know of or somebody you just want to because you're an avid football fan.
Right.
We do this because of you guys. And, we've seen the comments every week on our Facebooks, and we love it, and we love how engaged people are, although sometimes they may not like us. It's okay. We're likable people, we think. But
can't please everybody.
No, but we like that you guys are entertained and you're engaged and you care, because we care too. And we are so happy that we have so engaging viewers and engaging fans like you here in Northwest Indiana. And it's been a pleasure this football season. Although, like Mike said, there's no off-season football in high school or high school football in Northwest Indiana. We'll be posting continuous football clips throughout the year. And before you know it, it's going to be next football season, 2024. But that's going to do it all for us here on the RSN All Area Football Show. A big thank you to our executive producer, Chris Ramirez, our operations manager, Rich Castile, and our coordinating producer, Zach Miller. Of course, a big thank you to our other Zach Zanelli.
Did it all year, man.
For our producer. Yeah, he did it all year. Not just today's show, not just the kickoff shows, but Region Football Weekly for the main part that we were live every Thursday. He was also a big part in training with the tribe as well. Definitely. So he's been the backbone of all the shows, of all the football content.
And a smorgasbord of other stuff, too.
Yeah, absolutely. All of our football content. You've seen football-wise. It was all Zach Zanelli was pretty much behind it all. Yeah. And some of the stuff